Let's talk about what's a really good budget for geographic farming in 2025. I actually had a fantastic conversation with somebody that asked, is $150 a month enough to get started with direct mail? And I thought it was such an interesting question because so many times do I love to stay on a budget that I thought, why not evaluate it? Now, the first thing I do want to point out is that typically we do suggest a 500 home minimum as it relates to your geographic farm. Now, at 500 homes, $150, that wouldn't have covered everybody, so that's obstacle number one. $150 to mail everybody will not work, no matter how savvy you are. Believe me, I've tried. So really, to start farming, you really need to figure out what's your farm size and then put it in correlation with, does it make sense? Because in this case, the answer would have been no. Now, I did go a little bit further and I said, okay, well, let's assume out of those 500 homes, I'm not going to build a brand, meaning I'm not going to just send it to everybody. I'm just going to concentrate on the people that are most likely to list their home with me. Now, let's assume out of those 500 homes, we do have half of them that have owned for more than 10 years. Now, that's already pretty good, right? Now we have 250 homes that we're like, maybe there's a potential. If you have $150 to spend, you're getting closer to actually maybe sending it out to everybody you're looking for. The next problem that I'm, however, seeing is that while you can send them something, you have nothing to follow up with. So that made me think about, okay, how much of that $150 should I set aside for follow-up? And personally, what I decided on is that I'm going to have a fifth of that, 20%, set aside to follow-up. Follow-up campaigns, anything related to, staying in front of them. We do a CMA box, so we do want to also have a budget for those because, well, they're not free. So I want to make sure we're all inclusive on the budget. And if I look at the 20%, right, roughly $30 out of that $150, I'm going to set aside for follow-up. Now that I have $30 set aside for follow-up, which again, my box I think cost me $7, that alone would end up being like 4 boxes, right? 4 leads, 4 follow-ups, which I think is really, really doable. Leaves me with $120 to really start getting my leads. Now, knowing my new budget, $120 to lead gen, $30 to follow up, right? It became easier for me to figure out, okay, what is it that I really can do and cannot do? Now, my 500 people farm, let's assume you have to have print cost, right? If you have to go and send in to get flyers printed, for example, can you print that and maybe save on the postage? Well, in that case, I think it might be possible if you actually put manual action in. But of course, that wasn't the plan because who's got time for that? So we're gonna do mailings because, well, when most people come to me, they want to start mailing. They don't want to be out there in the scorching heat or winter, snow, rain, doesn't matter, right? They want the easy button. So knowing that they're gonna look for mail options, I started evaluating the $120 and what could I do with it as it relates to mail. There's a couple different options for mailings. One is EDDM, every door direct mail. It does send for 21 cents. However, my small quantity I was looking to print was going to make this pretty expensive. So, at 70 to 80 cents a piece, I wasn't really going to get very far, maybe about 180 houses, right? If that, but it was a pretty good option. Next up, I looked at what if I wanted to use GeoCentral. GeoCentral is what we use. It does have unlimited free printed postcards. All I do is cover postage based on USPS rates. And that would have gotten me to about the same, but it also would have given me more insights. It would have given me more data. It would have given me smart QR code technology and so much other stuff. So I'm like, oh, that is pretty good. Now, the third option was bulk mail. Bulk mail is a way for you to do mail in a more manual fashion, and it will actually help you stretch your marketing budget. I really think it does. You do have to have a permit, so you got to factor in the permit cost on it. But if you get a couple agents at your office maybe to go in, it is super affordable. I think the permit itself is like $200-300 a year. So again, doable within the budget, but time intensive. You have to do a whole lot of legwork. Figuring that this really wasn't what the agent was looking for, learning a whole other thing, I kind of eliminated that one. But if you are savvy and you know how that works, you might be able to use that medium to get started. Now, knowing all of these things, right? I looked at the budget and I thought, well, it really didn't leave a lot of homes. Let's say it was going to leave, it was 150 homes. Knowing the response rate, right? Let's say we're going to have a 4% response rate. Knowing that it sometimes takes more than one mailing, I really thought it was a better strategy to just up the budget. Not just because you were able to target also other homes that help you build a brand, but you really have to factor in more than one touch, right? And $150 was just not gonna be a whole lot to spend when it comes to direct mail. So I ran all these numbers again, and what I did was I doubled the budget. I doubled the budget to about $300, which actually allowed me to not just mail once, but mail to these homes 3 times, to have follow-up in place, and actually feel like I was not gonna just do a one-off campaign that's not gonna lead me to anything. So I was having a decent quantity, I was having a decent response rate, and I had planned for additional touches. So direct mail, when it comes to it, what should be a good budget? I think about $300 a month is probably a fairly good one for that, just realistically speaking. Even if you're just going after expireds, right? Because our expired campaigns, for example, they are 8 touches long. Most expireds do not list with you after the first one. And I think that was actually the one she had asked, what about expireds if I concentrate on those? Most expireds list within 90 days. So you do want to have a plan in place for these 90 days of follow-up. And that is where the budget constraints started to come in, really trying to figure out how does it all make sense. Again, expireds are fantastic, so are for sale by owners. Low-hanging fruit, they've raised their hand already, but you do have to really budget it in. What is the campaign? Is it a multi-touch campaign? Does it make sense to send? Do you have enough touches planned out? That's all we do inside the Hyperlocal Agent. We do have training tutorials on our websites you can check out on this. They're absolutely free for expireds, FISBOs, cancels. Again, lots of information that you can get from us. But hopefully you're starting to see and look at your own budget and thinking, what am I actually going to use it for? Because budget is not just compromised of one thing, right? The lead generation, but also the other little things. Does that budget also need to cover follow-up? Which the answer was yes, it did. So in that case, if I had $150 to spend, I would either look at it from a past client perspective first, or I would look at it and be like, okay, can I focus on maybe for sale by owners, or can I put in manual effort and stretch my marketing dollars, reaching more people? Now, 150 is a start, so I don't want to discourage anybody, but I do want to also set more realistic expectations, because $300 in 2025, just a little bit more realistic. So hope it helps. I'll see you in the next video.